Hi, good morning, I guess. So today is January 13, 2026, and it's 2:41 a.m. U.S. Central Time. My name is Rinaldo J. Aguirre Marcano, and I'm recording this from my home located at the 2302 Britton Ridge Drive, Katy, Texas 77494. And so this is demo D97, okay? I'm doing this one a little bit different today. So I'm using YouTube Live um, for different reasons, right? Um, yeah. So for this demo, what I would like to do is to. So I have different goals, right, for this one. And what I would like to do. Let me move this a little bit because it's um, yes. So my goals today, I have different goals, right? But these all stemmed from demo D96, right? Because in that demo I made a couple of comments. So I made a long demonstration, but after the fact I thought that maybe I did not uh, you know make justice to the idea. Like I think there is a deep implication in that demo that I did not really make justice to, and I would like to address that. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that as I was thinking about that, I came across one of I think the first demo I recorded, which was recorded almost a year ago. It was in January 2025, January 27th, right? And I watched it, and when I watched it, um, it was weird because I said some things in that demo that were incredibly. I can tell that now because I've developed all this technology through the last year, and I've analyzed this data, working on this 20 hours per day for a year. um, and I can see, right, um, I don't know how to say this, but I can see how accurate those statements were, even though back then I did not have the level of technology that I have today. Right? So I don't know. It was amazing to see that I was able to. It was, I guess, right. It was kind of an intuition, right, based on data. Like I was seeing some of the data, right, because I had already captured the geoindex, but I did not have the same level of advancement in terms of technology that I have today. And still, I could see it, right. Anyhow, what I would like to do to start this session is to play for you a couple of statements that I made. So I'm gonna play for you that demo, but I'm not gonna play the whole demo. It's 40 minutes. Just gonna play small segments of some things that I said in that demo that I think are very relevant to this conversation. Right. So that's the first thing I would like to do, to play that for you. So let me start by that. Sorry, I'm gonna be a bit slow today because this UI I've never used it before, so I'm not completely sure what everything is. Um, so I guess it would be here, right? Um, right. So this, and when I see this, it's also funny, right? Because I can also see the I guess I don't know if progression would be a good word, right? But I could see the evolution, right, of how I present these things. So this UI that you're gonna see in this demo looks a bit childish, right? But so excuse me for that, but it was the first demo that I ever made. In this area, right? So right, so I have certain specific positions that I want to play for you. So I'm gonna start at minute 11. So this demo is on YouTube, right? I'm gonna read the ID for you because they have demoted this demo so much using Liana technologies that it's impossible to find. Like even if you search for the title in YouTube or if you search in Google, you will not be able to find it because they have been demoting this video for a year. And you can see the date. of this video. It doesn't say the days. It's like 11 months ago, but I know it was January 27th, 2025. So you won't be able to find it, right? Even if you search for it by title. So I'm going to give you the ID. The ID is E as in echo. So you can, if you type this in YouTube search, it will come up, right? You will find it, but only if you search for the ID. So it's E as in echo, number 8, D as in Delta, Q as in Quebec, Y as in Yoyo, number 2, Q as in Quebec, D as in Delta, Y as in Yoyo, X as in Zulu, E as in Echo. So that's the idea of the video. If you type that string, it will come up. So the first thing I would like to play for you, I mean the first segment, right? It's at 11:55. Right, I'm not gonna make any comments on the things are self-explanatory, right? But I think it's very relevant. So I'm gonna play it for you now, okay? So I'm gonna play from 11:55 to 12:18. Other countries, I imagine, like I don't know what the arrangement that they have with them is, but obviously they're employing agents from other countries. I don't know if they lease the agents. I don't know if they directly employ the agents. I don't know. But there's one encoder that encodes, for example, properties that are associated to the agents that they employ. There's another encoder that encodes things related to telecommunications equipment, like antennas, right? The specific locations of certain antennas is marked in the index. There's another encoder, which is the one that I want to talk about today, that encodes what I believe are military positions. And I have dozens of reasons to believe this. I'm not going to get into the details of why I think this way, but it's pretty clear to me that these are really military positions, which brings me to the realization that this group, besides being a criminal group, a criminal enterprise, they are also a paramilitary group, because what they're doing is that they're employing military personnel, that have military knowledge, military techniques, tactics, and military equipment to target civilians, right? There's no difference between these and the guerrillas in Colombia in the 80s, right? Now, if I think of that, I think it's interesting in the fact that it's kind of a new situation, because this might be, and I don't know, I'll have to review the history books, but this might be one of maybe the first paramilitary group that doesn't have to face the military, right? Like in every single case that I can think of, the paramilitary groups that I know of had to fight with the legit military, right? But in this case, they're basically they formed a paramilitary group to target civilians, and they don't face opposition from any military, right? In fact, they employ the military of other countries. So I think it's a very unfair fight, and I think that's probably why it has gone undetected for 2 decades, right? Because we civilians were not equipped to fight with this. And even if you think of police forces, they're not equipped to fight with a military force. They would lose that fight, right? And this is a paramilitary group combined with intelligence services of other countries, right? It's a very dangerous combination, and I think I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think it's a rather cowardly stance, to employ intelligence services of other countries, combine them with a paramilitary group basically, and then use that combination to target unarmed civilians that are not even aware of what's happening, right? My hope is that they face an equivalent force to see what would happen, right? If they had to face, say, the U.S. military combined with the FBI, right? It will be an interesting thing to watch, to see how well they perform in that case, right? Well, anyhow, so in my dashboards, So that is the first segment I wanted to play for you, and there's another one. It's a short segment. It's at 33:45. And if you're curious about this demo, I really recommend it. Like it's a very interesting demo, and it shows you how the technology got started, basically after I captured the database, right? After it was leaked to me by Diosdado Cabello. So 3345.
Military position. I mean, when I say military, I mean, and I should probably, go deeper on this. When I say that they're a paramilitary group, what I mean is that they are employing people that were military personnel in the past, maybe even active personnel in other countries. And they come to the US or they go to other countries. They are not dressed in uniform, but they are military personnel, right? So they may be dressed as civilians, but they are people with military training that have military skills, that know how to operate military equipment, and they're using all this to target civilians, right? That's what I mean. So in the case of this,
So that's the second segment. So you see, so there's a couple of things that I would like to say here. One is that you see, I can see how this was accurate, right? And now that I've gone through this journey of a year working on this project, of course, there are certain things that I did not know, right? And you can see them in the way I talked, right? And so I want to like point that out a little bit, right? So one is that at that point in time, I thought that the leaders of this organization were Elon Musk and Piero Midiar, and because they were, you have to, put yourself in my shoes, right? Like I was an engineer trying to make startups that they were always attacked by these people, right? Using this. So I thought they were the leaders, right? I didn't know that they were really frontmen for the Communist Party of China and Diosdado Cabello, and other similar players, right, in other countries. So I did not know that, right? So the one miscomprehension I had is that they were the leaders. They were not the leaders, they were employees, right? So that's why in the first segment I said something to the effect that I don't know if they leased the agents or if they employed them directly, because I thought, I mean, it was clear to me that they were using Venezuelan agents and Russian agents and Chinese agents, but I thought they were paying them, right? I didn't know that these agents were being provided directly by these countries, right? I mean, by the governments, quote unquote, of these countries, right? The other thing I did not know is that they were employing lawyers, attorneys, and judges in all these countries, including the US, to kidnap children, right? I did not know that until I experienced it myself, right? Because they still have my son kidnapped, and they've had him kidnapped for 10 months, right? And it's still ongoing. So that's something I did not know, but I got to experience it myself, right? And thinking of that, when I made that comment, there's no difference between this and the guerrillas in Colombia in the 80s. I mean, that even though they had not kidnapped my child yet, at that point when I said that, it was almost prophetic, right? Because this is exactly what the guerrillas in, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this because people may not know, right? Like, I mean, this is something that happened in South America 30 years ago, more, right? In the 80s, I think at the end of the 80s. Yeah, so almost 30 years ago, right? And people may not know, right, what was really like. I was a child back then, but I remember seeing these things in the news. So what the situation was that the political situation in Colombia was Colombia. I'm talking about the country in South America next to Venezuela. The political situation was very unstable, right? And there were paramilitary groups and the guerrillas, right? So there was one were leftists, the guerrillas, and then the paramilitary were, from the right, extreme right, right? So they started this practice of kidnapping civilians, right, as a way to do two things: to collect money, right? So they would kidnap people that had money, that had a lot of money, and then they would ask for astronomical ransoms, right? And also to exert political pressure, right? So they would kidnap the sons of the politicians and the sons or daughters of, the judges, things like that. They would kidnap judges, they would kidnap politicians, right? And this was a widespread practice in Colombia, right? And what they would do, they would kidnap these people from Bogota and from the other major, metropolitan areas, I guess, and they would take them to the jungle And these people could be kidnapped in the jungle for years. There was one case, look it up if you're curious. There was a lady by the name, I think her name was or is Ingrid Betancourt, and she was a presidential candidate, something like that. She was a politician and she was very prominent, and she had chances to get to the presidency. They kidnapped her and they kept her in the jungle for 10 years, right? For a decade, something like that. So this is what the guerrilla did in Colombia, right? Kidnap people to achieve their objectives. And this is exactly what they're doing here. And look, where is my son, right? They still, after 10 months, they still have him kidnapped, right? So this is a tactic employed by the guerrilla in Colombia. It's the same thing, right? The thing is that keeping people in the jungle did not scale universally. So what they did is that they employed, they changed the, I guess, the execution of the MO to be able to adapt it to the US and other countries, right? By using the judges and using the attorneys, right? And now they kidnap people everywhere, right? Around the world, especially children, right? So, put that in perspective, right? So, thinking of that, right? I was thinking about this thing, and what I recommend that you watch demo D96, in which I talked about how I tuned the algorithms and the geographical targeting of the books, right? Using my adversaries as human writers to understand what is the best possible algorithm. And this is the thing that I think I did not make justice to it when I said it on demo D96. And the reason I say that now is because I think this might represent a unique opportunity, right? The informant sent me some messages that I got like the last time I went out. I think it was on Sunday, right? Yes, on Sunday night, and he gave me the feedback that showing the coordinates of Syria and the other countries. I think I showed Syria. I showed like 4 different countries where Russia had conflicts in the last 20 years, and I mean talking military conflicts, right? War. And the informant told me that the effect on the network of me showing those coordinates on the screen was panic, right? So, putting that together, right? Putting 2 and 2 together, that made me realize that this might be a unique opportunity, right? Because think about it, right? Not only they leak the database to me, a person that is able to decode it, right? Because of the experience that I've had working at Google. I mean, they could have leaked it to anybody else in the world, but they gave it to me, right? One of the people that could decode it. There's other people that could decode this, right? I'm not the only one, but there's not a lot of Google engineers that work in search ranking for a decade, right? There's not many of those. But of that set, right, they gave it to me. And I decoded it, right? And I also happen to have the money to spend in getting the address because, as I explained before, this costs money, right? But then, right, after I decoded it, then they helped me tune the algorithm in the ways that I described in demo D96, right? And this is a unique opportunity. I'm not saying for me, I'm saying for example, the US military. Why? Well, because in any conflict or war scenario that you face, or I mean that I'm addressing respectfully the US military, right? In any war scenario that you face, you have to make decisions, right? I imagine, right? I've never been involved in a war, but I imagine. I mean, I've been involved in this war, right? And by this experience, I think I know how it would work, right? You have to make decisions guessing what is the position of your opponent, right? You have to guess, right? Like you may have satellites, but you may not be 100% sure, right? And sometimes you have to guess. But in this case, they gave me the data, and then they helped me tune the algorithm in what is the most damaging way to present that data, right? So this is direct confirmation from the adversary on what is that would hurt them the most, right? This has to be gold for the military, right? Because and for the DEA and for all these agencies, because uh, it's like, having the adversary telling you where to hit them. Right? It's basically that's what it is. Right? So understanding that, and because of the feedback I got from the informant, I thought, maybe I should repeat this, right? Give some other coordinates that could help authorities if they see these videos, right? I don't know if they're going to see them, but if they do see them, I'm hoping that this could help. Well, to be honest, I think they will see them, right? Because if the informant, if the informant gave me that feedback, right, it means that they know something that I don't know, right? Because otherwise they wouldn't panic. I mean, they know that I've had this data and this technology for a year at this point, and they have not panicked in this way. So something, they must know something. What I'm trying to say is that the Venezuelans, right, and the other people in the network must know something that I don't know. Because if they're panicking in this way, and they haven't panicked in this way in the last year, despite all my efforts, is because something is going on that I don't know, but they know, right? And I'm guessing that thing is that the authorities already have this, right? So with that in mind, right, I would like to offer um, new coordinates. That's my objective here. Okay, but these new coordinates I'm going to offer are not are not about Russian conflict zones. I'm going to be a bit more, I don't want to say selfish, right? But I'm going to, give some coordinates that would help me probably recover my son, right? Uh, because, when somebody gets kidnapped, what you have to do is to rescue them, right? You cannot let the person kidnapped in the jungle, right? Uh, like when Ingrid Betancourt was kidnapped, she was rescued, right? Well, I don't know if she was rescued or if she escaped. I can't recall. I was maybe a teenager at that point. I don't really recall. I have to read that. But anyhow, right. So with that, I'm gonna transition a little bit, right? So the first thing I want to say here, right, that the things I'm going to talk about are about a wanted fugitive that is a wanted man and is wanted by the DOJ, right? So this is an international fugitive, right? He poses as a politician, he calls himself the Minister of Peace. Imagine that, right? In Venezuela. But he is really, and I cannot say this enough, he is a wanted man. He's a wanted fugitive, right? International fugitive. I'm talking about Diosdado, of course, right? I want to show you the poster, right? I don't think I'm making this up. Here he is, right? It's $25 million, right? The reward. So what I want to do here is to offer the U.S. military, if I'm sorry, I don't mean to overstep or anything, right? But I see that I have this confirmation directly coming from them that these coordinates and the way they're ranked hurt them, right? So this could maybe help execute this poster, like this warrant that is out for his arrest, right? So I want to offer a set of coordinates that could help in that. And I've applied engineering and technology to picking these coordinates in a specific way, right? There's design behind what I'm going to say. But I'm going to deliver them in the same way that I did before. I'm going to show them in the screen. So if the military gets this, they can. And of course, I also have to say, I want to say this, I want to make it clear, like this is not about the money, right? But I did send the DA an application for the reward under the narcotics program like 2 or 3 months ago, right? For Josaro Cabello and for 9 other individuals of the same cartel. So I would like to make these, I'm going to make this a submission, like an addendum to that application. So anyhow, let's do this, right? So let me see what's the best way to do this. I think the best way would be, I'm going to share my entire screen, I guess is the best way. Okay, so what I did, right? I created a series of books that I'm not going to publish because I'm not going to give them the ranking, right? But I'm going to show here the important places, right? The top 2 percentile in all these books. And I have them here. So what I did, right? I picked key locations in Venezuela, and I built one book for each location. Right? So all the most important coordinates are ranked in those books. And I also compiled a series of books of possible escape routes that he could take. Okay, I'm thinking that he might try to flee. Right? Well, I don't know. Like going by history, dictators usually don't flee. Right? They usually die in their land. And I'm thinking cases like, I don't know, Saddam Hussein and what's the other one, Gaddafi, right? I mean, they were captured in their territories, right? They didn't flee. I think Gaddafi tried to flee, but he didn't. He did not cross the border. And I don't think this is not an inflammatory comment. I think Diosdado is in the same league as Gaddafi and Saddam, right? It's the same league. It's exactly the same. So, but just in case, right? If well, not only if he tries to flee, but like also, I think this could also deter these countries from giving him asylum, right? If he tries that, because if they know that the coordinates are already public and they give asylum to a wanted fugitive, it's just asking for trouble, right? So I'm going to publish those. I'm going to also mention those places here, right? So the possible escape routes, which I've identified them, the possible ones, right, based on geopolitical factors, basically, and things that happened in the past. Like, for example, I don't know if people will recall when El Pollo Carvajal was captured. I think it was in Curacao, right, and then he was returned. I don't know if it was Curacao or let me ask Google. Where was El Pollo Carvajal captured and then returned? I think it was Curacao. It was in Aruba. Okay, yeah. What happened there was that he got captured, but before he could get extradited, the government, I think it was of Holland. There's a country that has extreme influence over Aruba. I think it's Holland, right? Um, the Netherlands. Oh yeah, that explains it, right? I mean, the Netherlands is where the technology is and all these Russian operations, right? So of course they exerted pressure and then they let him go and return him to Venezuela. Before he was extradited, right? So I'm guessing that he could take the same path and go to Aruba to then go to Russia, right? So because of that, I included Aruba into the list of possible escape routes, right? That I'm going to disclose here. And I'm going to send this to the DEA. So, but before talking, I'm just giving you my rationale for picking the potential escape routes, right? I did not choose Bogota and Colombia because I think that opposition still exists, right, in that country, and I don't think it's likely. I mean, they have a lot of agents in Colombia, right? Don't get me wrong. But I don't think politically it would be a feasible move for him to go to Colombia. So that's why I'm not wasting time on that. But like the connections between Diosdado and the guerrilla in Colombia are obvious and well known, right, for years. And Petro is in power since recently. And they're kidnapping people in the same way that the guerrilla was kidnapping people in Colombia in the 80s, but now at planet scale, right? 2 and 2 is 4, right? But anyhow, yes. So let's start with Venezuela, right? So let's start with the logical place, which is Caracas, La Guaira, right? So here you have the book. I wanted to show you the cover, right? So I made this special cover for Diosdado for this series of books, for this specifically, right? So this is what the cover looks like, and for example, this one would be the cover for Caracas, La Guaira, Venezuela, which I will publish, after, but not right now. So let's start with the coordinates, okay? Okay. So this is Caracas, La Guaira. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing I did in the previous demo, in which I placed the addresses, the coordinates in the screen, and I'm going to scroll slowly so people, if they get this video, they get the coordinates. Okay. So these are the top 2%. So the top 2 percentile, basically. Okay. And it's 3 pages per book. So I'm just going to scroll through them. Okay. So those are the top 2%, and then the rest of the addresses are not sorted by score, but by latitude and longitude, right? So I'm giving you the top 2%. So you know where the good targets are. So that's Caracas, right? Now so that's Caracas and La Guaira, okay? Now the next logical place is La Orchila, which is an island in Venezuela. It's a military island. Like, it's an island where nobody can go but Diosdado Cabello, right? And they have a military bases in there and other things. So these are the points in La Orchila, okay? Okay. Let's repeat the same procedure. Let me check if you can really see that very well. Yes, you can see that very well. Okay. So here are the locations for this is La Orchila, okay, the island, the military island. As you can see, this island is a very, very important point. It has more points than Caracas. And don't get me wrong, Caracas has a lot of points. Okay. So now the next logical place is Valencia, Maracay, and Puerto Cabello, right? So this is a part in the northern part of Venezuela when there is a heavy concentration of military bases. There's like 3 major military bases in a radius of something like 100 miles. And there's a big port, Puerto Cabello, right? Okay. So this is Valencia, Maracay, and Puerto Cabello. And this is the top 2 percentile, right? 2%, the top 2% of addresses, right? Note how the scores here are higher than in Caracas. I mean, the top scores are higher than in Caracas and in Lorchila. So in Lorchila, it was 27 million, the top location. Caracas was 23 million. And in Valencia is 29 million, right? So the center of military power is really Valencia, right? It's not Caracas. And here are all the locations, right? Okay, let's keep going. So far we've done Caracas, La Guaira, La Orchila, Valencia, Maracay, and Puerto Cabello. So the next logical part is the northern section of Venezuela, which includes Valencia, but it also includes things like Maracaibo and other places, right? So I built a book for this region specifically. So it's a bigger region, right? So some points will be present in other books, but there will be some new points that are not present yet in other books. Okay. So here are the top 2%. So see here, the top location is 58 million. So that's double than in Valencia, right? So this is obviously a location that was not in Valencia, but it's important. I'm not going to debug them here because it would make this demo too long, but I'm just offering the coordinates and the scores, right? Ranked by the nuclear algorithm that they already approved in a committee composed by China, Russia, and Venezuela, and Iran, right? So what better intelligence for the US military than that, right? Yeah, this list is good. And you can see because of the distribution, right? Like even at the end of the tail, it's still on the 20 million, right? So this is a good list. There you go. Okay. And the next logical place in Venezuela is Barinas, right? Barinas is an area that it's on the southern part of the country, and it could be. I mean, it's a good area for multiple reasons. Like it's an area that it's contiguous to, or it's next to both Colombia and Brazil. So it could be a good place to decide where to go or to get cover. So that's why I'm including it. And Chavez was from Barinas originally, right? He was originally from that area. So there's a lot of political legacy, I guess, right? And you see the scores. The top score is 55 million, right? So you can guess why. I'm going to improve these books a little bit by adding line numbers, because that could be a good way for people to discuss, right? Like, do you see number 355? Like, but right now they don't have line numbers, so it's hard to, if you want to talk to somebody else about a particular line item, it's hard to reference it, right? Because they don't have line numbers. So I'm going to add that. Okay. Let me do a check on our stream. Is it still good? Okay. So those are the locations that I identified for Venezuela as, likely locations. Now let's talk about the escape routes. If you ask me, I don't know if this is true or not, right? But I read years ago some historian like that was, I don't recall exactly the name of the book, but he was saying that Diosdado had never been to Cuba, and I don't know if that is true or not. Because he could have been there and not tell anybody. But apparently he was one of the few people in the regime that has never been to Cuba, right? So I don't know if that's true or it's just deception, right? But so anyhow, I'm putting Cuba in here just in case. But if that historian was right, then it would be an unlikely place for him to go, right? Um, I think Curacao and Aruba are dangerous because they're surrounded by water, right? It would be too vulnerable. To be honest, and the same with Trinidad and Tobago, I think the likely place would be Brazil. Because of all these countries in South America, Brazil is the one that has the strongest military power. I think Brazil, and I don't know if I don't know if I'm right about this, but I think Brazil is so advanced in terms of military that they have the capability of making their own planes. And I don't know if this is true. I'm not sure, but I think they do make planes. Let me see. Does Brazil have manufacturing capabilities for planes? Yes. Yeah, that's the company I was thinking about, Embraer. So, if he has to get cover, right, he will go to some place where there's military power, right? He cannot go to a weak nation where he could be captured. And I think of all the countries in South America, Brazil is the only one that could protect him, right, in a way. And Lula is, of course, in it, right? We know I'm saying that because of the data. I'm not guessing. Like, I know Lula is a big part of the network. Um, so it's possible, right, that he goes there. So let's start with Brazil. I think it's the most likely scenario. So this is not entire Brazil. This is the region of Brazil where there's the political power, right? So this is Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, and Belo Horizonte because there's a tech hub in there, right? So it's possible. Unlikely, I think, but possible. But they're very close together, so I included Belo Horizonte. Okay, so this is that region of Brazil, right? Well, and while I do this, I want to also take the opportunity to ask the informant if you could tell me what is that I don't know. I mean, what is that? Why are they panicking so much, right? These days, um, if you can give me a hint, that will help me because then I will know where to hit them. Okay, so that's Brazil. That area of Brazil specifically. Right? Now let's talk about all these places that are mostly islands. Trinidad and Tobago. This would be like a jump point, right? Like if it goes that way, it would basically be a jump point. Um, like I don't think it's gonna live in Trinidad and Tobago, right? Okay, here we go. Okay. Now let's move to Curacao. Oh, I think I already finished, right? Yes. Yes, already finished. So Aruba is the next one. Okay. And now let's move on to Cuba, which, as I said, according to that historian, might be unlikely. But, who knows? Wow, you can see the scores. This is funny. So look, the top score in Cuba is 1 billion, right? So that is higher than the top score we saw in Iran, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Libya, in Venezuela, in Russia, even. So this, this is very telling, right? Of the historical roots of this, right? So look, I'm at page 2, and still the first score on page 2 is 3 times higher than the top score, is 8 times higher than the top score in Caracas. Imagine that. So maybe he will go to Cuba, right? It's possible. Okay, so that's it. So let me go back to the first page. Let me see. Yes, so that that concludes that the presentation of the coordinates that I want to make available in this fashion, right? Um, so again, I will um, publish this video, and I'll add a link to the first video that I was referencing that I recorded on January 27th, 2025. So almost a year ago. In which I describe, that video is interesting because I describe how was the database leaked, right? And you can watch that video and you can understand how I got this data, and then how I build the technology to decode it. And of course, that video was recorded a year ago, and a year has passed, and I have not stopped working on this for even one day. I have not taken any day off, or any vacations, and anything, right? Because of the obviously because of the circumstances I'm in, right? Um, and I've been working on this nonstop. I'm telling you this to give you an idea of how this has evolved since that demo was recorded, right? To give you an idea where I am right now in terms of the technology. But the video is interesting because it shows you how the data was acquired, how it was leaked, and it shows you a lot of interesting things about the patterns, right? The patterns that I was able to recognize using the data even a year ago. And it has all these observations about the true nature of this organization, right? Which, as I said, right, I fell short in what I described in that demo because I had not experienced it myself. So I fell short. But now that I can, and I haven't developed the technology to the point where I have it right now. Right now, I can see other things, right, like the targeting of nuclear facilities around the world, things like that, right? The support, the sponsoring of terrorist organizations. Like I was not aware of that in January 2025, but I am aware of it now. So that makes a big difference. So with this, I'm going to close this demo. And I'm going to thank you again for your time. And I'm going to package this. I'm going to send it to the DEA. Thank you so much for your time. And I'll see you in the next one.